What was once going to be purely a night of business ended up turning into something much more deadly, both for her and those around her. Negotiations gone sour. An awakening after a night of mystery, confusion, and even partial ecstasy. Jessica realizes that those stories parents tell their children before bed to scare them into behaving may in fact be based on reality. Welcome back, everybody, to Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York. My audio sounds a little different. It's because I've got a new setup. In the last episode, we went through basically what is the introduction. How our dear Jessica went from executive to Ventru here in New York City. Now, I know, metagame-wise, what is happening within New York in 5th edition. I do not know, however, if the game is going to acknowledge any of that. So I'm excited to see what happens from here on out. Because from here on out, it seems that our choices are going to be much more our own, instead of guided like the first hour or so. But the sun is about to arise, and that could kill us. So resting for the day and touching the abyss of death is what we'll do. Hunger lies at the heart of a vampire's existence. To ignore it is to tempt the beast to take over your actions in its desire to feed. To overindulge in feeding may threaten the masquerade, as well as staining what humanity you have left. In Coteries of New York, having high hunger is indicated by a progressively bigger bloody frame around the screen, like the one you see now. Ooh, so we'll have a little bit more of an abstract representation of hunger, instead of a hunger meter or anything. As your hunger grows, so do... Try that again. As your hunger grows, so does this indicator. Your hunger may increase when you call upon your vampiric powers, or when you need to mend your wounds after a fight, as it works in the game. Basically, every time you do something supernatural that can defy reality in some way, it's a temptation of your hunger. You roll a dice, and sometimes you'll get more hungry, and sometimes you won't. And there's a track of up to 5 hunger dots you can have, and the more of those that are filled, the hungrier you are. When your hunger reaches the maximum amount, you will receive a warning after you complete a piece of the story. Ignore it at your own peril. So they're going to be modifying the mechanics a bit here, I think, for the game, which is probably for the best. Some choices might only become visible if your hunger is high enough. Similarly, a high hunger may block off some choices, as you will be able to see after pressing continue. I see. Okay, interesting. To decrease hunger, you will need to feed. Whenever you see a feeding opportunity, you can take the risk to hunt and slake your hunger. See, I like, there's going to be a lot of different choices here. It's going to be very choose your own adventure, I think. Feeding opportunity. You will need to keep hunger at bay if you are to uphold the masquerade and survive the nights that await you. Easy enough. Bring it on. You open your eyes. The bed isn't warm. The room is filled with artificial light from the ceiling. The solid metal door is closed. Normally, you'd stretch for a bit. On some mornings, you'd probably throw the quilt over yourself and snooze a moment longer. But that was before. The way you woke up now, you are fully conscious. No grogginess, nothing weighing you down. Just the nagging need in the back of your head. Hunger. Not as severe as the last time, but unmistakably there. So the way it works in the tabletop game is you can never fully slate your hunger. The farthest you can go down is to 1 dot, with one exception. If you kill when you feed. And that's always tempting the beast. That's going to stain your humanity, and that's also a risk of breaching the masquerade. But if you do so when you feed, you sate your hunger entirely. Until, of course, one of the abilities you use or something along those lines causes you to rouse the blood and stoke the beast once again. You get up, and the door to the main room opens, and you open the door to the main room. A digital clock on the TV shows you the time, 9:04 p.m. You walk over to the blinds and retract them cautiously. The only light coming in is NYC's an artificial nighttime luminescence. So that's what your waking hours are going to look like now. You miss the sunlight already. You're seriously considering just walking out of the apartment and figuring this all out by yourself. But then you come back to the memory of Kadir's exotic sword being raised in the gallery. Maybe sticking around isn't that bad of an idea after all. You keep jumping channels for around half an hour and then switch to streaming services. Almost as if the universe had a sense of irony, you catch True Blood in the flood of recommendations. The doorbell rings, and it's horrifying sounding. Jesus, good lord. It's Sophie. Good evening, Jessica. Slept well? Like a dead man. Curious wording, but not that far from the truth, I suppose. No use dwelling on it. I think you will agree, with time. You made the right choice yesterday. I can teach you many things about yourself, your blood, its desires, and its power, and we will begin tonight. You are hungry, yes? I'm sure you are. Our kind always is. There is only one remedy, the blood. The drinks we had yesterday at Elysium are not the usual way you slake your thirst. So tonight I will assist you in your first foray into hunting. You need to learn to sense the kind of blood you desire, to understand how you can use the kind's vulnerabilities to your own advantage. Predator and prey, huh? Grim. So let me get this straight. We're predators. Humans are prey. That's pretty grim. I know what you feel. I remember the notion. But you will inevitably grow beyond it. You need blood to thrive, and there are many ways to take it, some more humane than others. You will find that drinking moderate amounts of it regularly will keep the hunger and the whispers of the beast at bay. You might think yourself monstrous, but there is a balance to be found here. The kiss gives the kind pleasure. You might remember this from your own embrace. Some can even become addicted to the sensation. But if you do it right, they tend to misremember your feeding. And that's exactly it. I'm going to go in the dictionary, it'll show you what the kiss is. An act of drinking blood, usually from a mortal. The kiss causes feelings of ecstasy to those who receive it. With the exception of, well, one clan. But they're not in this game, at least not as playable. After all, vampires do not exist. They are myths, fairy tales, and pop culture mainstays, correct? She gives you a sly, knowing smile. That is why the masquerade is so important, and even more crucial when you feed. Yeah, how do you avoid being seen? You isolate your prey, or you choose the right circumstances. People tend to avert their gaze when they see a couple intertwined in public. Love bites are easy to explain away. Some of us keep willing herds, or even just individual kind who desire the kiss. That comes at a higher risk these nights, though I would not recommend it to a young kindred like yourself. Feeding from the same area repeatedly can be dangerous, but by branching out you risk the ire of other kindred on whose domains you trespass. Lucky for you, New York is more forgiving in this regard. This is very true, and what's so exciting why I love this universe so much when it comes to how things work. You can hear my cat in the background. But basically the way it works is you think of a city as a country, and then the districts of that city as carved out pieces of land that have barons and dukes and lords, and they rule their land as they see fit, and only go to the prince, who claims all land, obviously, when the particular problem is needed. So you know, it's very medieval in that regard, and it's ripe for politics, rivalries, secret wars, and all that other good stuff. New York is in somewhat of a unique position. Many of its neighborhoods remain contested or unclaimed. The reason for this is a lesson for another time, but keep the following in mind. Take opportunities to feed when they present themselves these upcoming nights. As long as you hunt cautiously and respect the masquerade at all times, you should be fine. How interesting. I do wonder if that's because of a particular problem in the sewers of New York. To wit, I want you to join me for tonight. Come downstairs. Gregory is awaiting us. The busy street fills the air with traffic noise, pedestrian chatter, and a mix of smells that disorient you momentarily. These warm bodies contain what you want, what you need. You catch yourself. Did you really just think of these people as mere sources of blood? It takes a nudge from Sophie to break your train of thought. Her driver opens the door for her and then tips his hat to you, gesturing to get back in the back of the car. The car casually joins the somewhat thinned New York traffic. It's still busy in a way only one of the biggest cities in the world can be, but compared to daytime commute, it's a pleasant drive. You barely have the time to gather your thoughts and formulate new questions before the car comes to a stop. You're among the tall skyscrapers that make up Manhattan's iconic skylines. Come, Jessica. Park the car, Gregory, will you? The driver just nods and Sophie gets out. You join her, and the two of you walk through the glass doors together, then take the elevator up. You first notice an empty stage with the instruments of string quartet still in the back, then take in the few dozen chairs in front of it. The concert seemingly concluded. The patrons, all smartly dressed and posh, have spread out all over the hall. Sophie strides confidently inside, produces an invitation from her purse that she flashes in front of a security guard. You follow close and are let through without issue. Let's start easy. A social setting like this one would usually prove quite challenging to an inexperienced kindred, but consider this evening a small gift from your patron. I'm hoping to procure for you a willing vessel. Just remember what I told you about taking small sips. This one I have is a soft spot. Don't damage her. Now let's see here. Ah, there he is. She notices somebody in the crowd, flashes a heart-melting smile, and suddenly you feel drawn to her. You haven't thought about it before, but it's laid clear before you in this moment. Sophie is beautiful. Just looking at her is a privilege. Just being with her makes you feel elated. Everybody in the crowd, but especially the man who's almost tripping over himself to reach her, clearly agrees. Edgar, I'm so happy to see you. How is your daughter? Is she with you? Oh, there she is. Julie, my girl, come over, please. There's somebody I'd like you to meet. The young woman who walks across the hall can't be more than 19 years old. It's clear from her mismatched earrings and the partially faded purple hair dye that she doesn't fit this crowd. Julie, this is Jessica. I think the two of you should get acquainted while I talk business with your dad. Awfully boring stuff, I assure you. I'm positive you'll like each other. The girl gives you a shy smile and nods towards the balcony stairs. You follow, somewhat unsure what it is exactly Sophie expects you to do. You reach a secluded place from which the entire lobby is now visible. All eyes are on Sophie. They listen intently, then laugh when she does. Julie saves you the trouble of figuring out the next step. If you're with Sophie, then I guess you're, you know. She puts her wrist to her lips and gives herself a theatrical nip, then looks to you, embarrassed, but also hopeful. What? You're into that sort of thing. She blushes, looks down at the floor, nods. Could you, if you'd like, Miss Langley tells me She swallows hard, avoids your eyes. That I taste nice. Well, we've got to. We're gonna be hungry, and the hunger is never gonna go. And it'd be probably a bad thing to turn down a favor offered to us by our patron who literally saved our lives. So we will drink. You take her forearm to your hand. A quick look around confirms nobody's watching and no security cameras cover this area. You bite down gently. It's surreal. She's just given you her blood of her own volition. How is this possible? What about the masquerade? You need to ask Sophie. You tear away from her. A brief convulsion shakes you. Her smell. It's her smell. It's not right. The temporary feeling of bliss the girl felt when you bid her is gone in an instant. She's disappointed. Annoyed, even. She looks at you, unsure of what's the matter. Come back, please. Just have some more. Just a little bit more. The very thought makes you want to throw up. What little of her blood you've tasted. You shake your head. The girl sniffs, starts crying, wipes her face into her jacket sleeve and walks down the stairs and into the hall. The crowd around Sophie disperses slowly. Looking at her now, only some residual awe hangs in the air. Yes, she's pretty, maybe even beautiful, sure, but not your type. What came over you before? Ah, the powers of a toreador. To be able to command a room so easily simply by just existing. But if she exerts just a little effort, even those who are beyond mortals' attention can be snapped to her. You walk over to her. Edgar, dear, it was splendid talking to you, but we need to get going. Give Julie my best wishes. Come with, Jessica. Gregory is waiting for you out front. It's only in the car that Sophie addresses you. So how did it go? I tried, but you people are sick. Amanda seems pretty cold. Amanda, that is her default name. Jessica, rather, seems rather cold, even with her delivery of the lines I choose. You people are sick, I think, is suitable, though. Are you kidding me? I didn't feed on her. That girl needs help. You people are sick. Is that how you repay your patron for sharing one of her most prized vessels with gauche accusations? She sounds genuinely offended. That approach will take you nowhere but into the arms of the beast. Fine. Forget about me ever sharing one of my flock with you again, ungrateful whelp. And so the dictionary describes a whelp, a derogatory term for a young kindred, originally used with exclusive reference to one's own progeny, basically your child. Her anger is swift, but short. I must hope I won't regret saving you from Kadir's sword. Oh well, if at first you don't succeed, perhaps you need a change of pace. Time for the next stop. Training wheels off this time. Gregory, Flushing Meadows, please. The driver takes the car over to the Williamsburg Bridge. You settle your thoughts. What's this about? Why Flushing Meadows? Yeah, why Flushing Meadows? Flushing? What for? Other than the fact the Unisphere is beautiful at this time of night, it's a great hunting ground on which to try out some of the talents of the blood. We all have our talents. Some of them come from the legacy we inherit from our sire. Others can be learned with experience. I can sway people, or make them fear me. I can see more of the world in greater detail than some kindred. I can will my body to move with unparalleled precision and grace, and more. All of these skills make me who I am. They also help me hunt. And what are mine? So what are my talents? Time will tell. You need to discover them yourself. When we arrive, experiment. Give different things a try. Follow your instinct and intuition. It will guide the blood. Always keep the masquerade in mind, however. It is all fine if you can disappear in plain sight or command animals with your mind, but save those overt talents for the right time and place. It only takes you half an hour to reach the park at this time of night. Both you and Sophie leave the car, with Gregory left behind again to find a parking spot and keep an eye on it. Sophie seems deep in thought. She takes in the surroundings with a dreamy gaze. The sky is surprisingly clear this night. The stars just barely visible in the light-polluted aura of the city. I feel like having a snack myself. I'll be by the fountain. Go look for somebody to your liking. See what effects you can achieve with your blood, but only pick one victim. Just one. Then, come back. Seeing how she seems not altogether right now, you decide to leave Sophie to her own devices and seek out your prey. My guess is that her ability usage in the gallery ended up rousing the blood. She got a little hungry from it. She wants to sate it before it gets too bad. Probably only at what we would mechanically call maybe 2 hunger, 3 at most. She seems not herself, so it's distracting her. From here, it looks like you have a few choices. Just taking a stroll around the park and finding an isolated jogger or someone like them could work, but focusing on one area might work better. The New York State Pavilion might work as a secluded spot. There's a skate park nearby. In worst case scenario, there's bound to be some unfortunate wino around. Or maybe the tennis courts nearby. There's light coming from there, so somebody might still be playing a late night match. They won't be alone, but they might be tired and let their guard down. As these scenarios play out in your mind, you realize you're planning how to assault a stranger in the middle of the night. It's a weird way to be, but the now familiar hunger prompts you to act. So we have to choose. Hunt near the decrepit pavilion, search for a victim around the park, look for prey at the tennis court. I don't know which one we want to go to. The decrepit pavilion, maybe? I don't really know what her type is yet. Young? Let's go to the tennis courts and see what... No, let's go to the decrepit pavilion. You make your way to one of the park's most well-known landmarks, the round skeleton of the New York State Pavilion, with its two vaguely futuristic-looking towers. You don't get lucky with the skate park. It's not deserted. Instead, a group of skaters is gathered here, talking loudly and listening to music playing out of crackling smartphone speakers. Deciding to have a quick look around, you identify a potential victim, a sleeping bag lady, leaned back on a bench, a shopping cart full of what looks like trash nearby. Even thinking of that second option makes you feel sick. You decide to take your chances with the skaters, not even getting close to the homeless woman. You think back to what Sophie did in the hall, how she managed to focus the attention of the entire gathering on her. That might be a tall order for you, but a single person could be doable. You single out a guy who's talking on his phone away from the gathering. He's having a heated discussion with somebody. A relative, partner perhaps. Whoever it is not going well. This talk's over. I said shut the fuck up. Hey, you hearing me? Shut up. Call me when you get some fucking sense in your stupid brain, okay? He ends the call abruptly and almost throws the phone to the ground in frustration. Hey, rough night. Rough night. He's got an angry expression on his face and tears welling in his eyes, but it gives you a curious look and even a bit of a shy smile. Yeah, you could say that. What's up? I got the cure. I got just the cure for that downer. I got something that'll put a smile on your face. He takes a few steps forward, away from his buddies who remain totally oblivious to what's happening, but you see your influence fading. You take your chance and lunge. Your fangs sink into his exposed shoulder. He shivers and lets out a moan. His phone hits the pavement and you hear the case cracking. His blood tastes like a clash of hot emotion and melancholy, laced with some artificial stimulant you can't quite place. An energy drink, recreational drug. It's a strange mix. You hardly have the chance to savor it as the proximity of the skater's friends makes you feel vulnerable. You hastily finish the drink and drag the guy over to the pavilion. When you turn around, you realize you're not alone. A hooded man is looking menacingly at you. What do you think you're doing, Brian? What do you think you're doing, barging into my turf like this, Lick? Ooh, he called me a lick. So a lick is another derogatory term. We'll take a look. Addressing a young, unexperienced vampire. So we just poached on somebody's potential territory. He likely claimed it as his, since as we've been told, New York is being claimed by everybody. Lick, what kind of slur is that? What'd you call me? Lick? What is that supposed to mean? Don't be cute with me. I know what you are. Shove that Masquerade bullshit up your ass. Better tell me who you're with before my posse shows up and we'll beat it out of you. We could name drop. We'll stay vague, but hopefully specific enough to threaten him. Chill out. I'm with the Camarilla. He does anything but chill out. He immediately tenses up, gives you an extremely nasty look and bares his fangs. You with the Ivory Tower, cunts? Well. Tonight's my lucky night. Ivory Tower is where the prince resides usually. Another name for the Camarilla, yeah, they can be used in that regard. I'ma fuck you up and bring you to Callahan. He'll have some fun breaking your shins, and maybe by the end of it, I'll get to have a nice long sip. I wonder what you taste like, Lick. He does his best impression of Hannibal Lecter's in a nice Chianti stick, but he's not as intimidating as he thinks. Dominate, force him to back down. Yeah, we'll give that a shot. Venture do get the ability to just command. Enough's enough. You won't be intimidated by this asshole. Ooh, we got red around, so we got hungrier for doing this. Leave. Now. His countenance changes. A cruel beast one moment, a humbled pup the next. He walks away, just like that. How did you do it? Not wishing to tempt fate any further, you return to the Unisphere, looking back over your shoulder to make sure you're not being followed. 2 figures are visible near the sculpture, a man and a woman entangled in a passionate embrace. No, not exactly. It's Sophie feeding. But this whole scene is set up so that it looks like a couple getting intimate in public. She pulls it off like she's done it 100 times before. It occurs to you that she probably has. The man is unsure on his feet as she lets go of him and leads him towards a nearby church. Noticing you, she whispers something into his ear and leaves him. Her driver appears from behind a tree. "Well, Jessica, how did it go?" You're about to answer when the same figure as before emerges from one of the alleys. He looks at the 3 of you, and a predatory smile creeps onto his lips. "You're screwed, dumb fuck. You think you can mess with my head and get away with it? Think you'll be safe with your friends? Well, I have friends too." He makes a motion to shout, but 2 things happen almost at the same time. First, that feeling of warmth and beauty emanating from Sophie flares up again, entrancing both you and the hooded thug. His shout comes out as a weak, confused squeak. Second, Gregory produces a wooden stake from a holster under his jacket and slams it into the thug's chest. Just like that, in a few seconds, the posturing vampire is down on the ground, paralyzed. "I see you've made a friend, Jessica. Curious choice of company, I would say. Who is he?" "He mentioned Callahan. He said something about presenting me to somebody named Callahan. Never heard of him." She looks shocked for a split second and then recovers her regular countenance. "Yes, I have. This hoodlum's an Anarch, then. Curious. Corona Park has not been claimed by any kindred last I checked. Let's go to the car. We'll put him in the trunk and present him to Kadir tomorrow night. I'm sure he'll be delighted to make this unbound's acquaintance." Gregory carries the staked vampire and dumps him in the car's trunk like a mannequin. It's a strange sight, and you're quite happy you're not in that poor fucker's shoes right now. It's almost surprising that you can get away with just casually throwing a stiff into your car and driving away, but then you remember that Sophie has been doing this far longer than you have. Still, the nagging thought that anything you did tonight could have been recorded on a CCTV camera, or picked up by a rando with a half-decent smartphone streamed online, fills you with dread. Hunting and using your abilities is dangerous in public. It's clear that this whole being a vampire thing has about as many caveats as it has perks. You're taken out of your headspace by Sophie's voice. "I'll pick you up tomorrow night, same as tonight. I have some business to attend to at Elysium, and I expect you to accompany me. Plus, our friend in the back needs to be properly introduced to Kadir and the Prince. I'm sure I'll have something interesting to say to the court." So the Anarch Movement is a vampire sect that opposes the tyranny, quote, of the elders and has placed itself outside the secret society of the Camarilla. Now, depending on who you talk to, the Anarchs are basically no better than the Camarilla, way better than the Camarilla, or somewhere in between. You think of them as they're younger, typically kindred, and their whole goal is more freedom, not being ruled by kings, essentially kings and queens and elder vampires who aren't with the times. Problem is, a lot of the Anarch societies tend to fall into a council system or a system where there's still democratic leaders and they always vie for power, as is the, I guess you could call, human and vampiric condition, and things tend to fall apart over time. The court is the social system of a city's kindred resembling the feudal system of mortals. At the top is the prince, below them, the members of the Permanent Council. Order in the domain is maintained by the sheriff. The gatherings are organized in secret sanctuaries known as Elysium. Quick rundown of how it works. Her voice is cold, cruel, and nothing like the enchanting personality she showed you at the gallery earlier tonight. Sophie is clearly a woman of many faces. What's going to happen to him? The usual, I imagine. Interrogation by Kadir, probably in the basement of the gallery. A quick trial with the prince in attendance if she's there tomorrow night. A swift execution as the verdict. All of this sounds eerily familiar to you, and you can't help but feel a pang of guilt when you think about what awaits this guy tomorrow night. You haven't told me how your hunting went. Getting the hang of it, I would hope. I think so. I think I am, yeah. I'll cope. I'm glad. She doesn't question you further. She seems distracted, not all there. Her thoughts drift and the car remains silent until you reach your apartment. We will pick you up tomorrow evening. Good night. And just like that, without any further courtesy, Sophie leaves, driven to her apartment by Gregory with a body in the trunk, right in the middle of Manhattan. Did you cross paths with a situation like these in the past unknowingly? What other secrets did you pass on the streets without knowing their true nature? Your haven is just as you left it hours ago. Although the sun won't come up for some time, you feel tired. You learned something about yourself today, and it'll take time to process. You're not in the mood for television, and the few books on the shelves in the apartment are either in languages you don't speak or sound like a boring read. Nothing left to do but rest. You settle in the back room, lock the door. A moment of hesitation, but then a decision. This time, you turn the light off. You think back to Julie. How many people in this city know about this vampiric society? How many are willing accomplices in sustaining it? And the thug you met in the park. If he's not Camarilla, then what is he? Are there independent vampires? How does that work? More questions. You begin wondering if there's ever going to be a night when you can start crossing them off your list, instead of adding to it. You close your eyes. You sink into the now familiar void of nothingness. It greets you with open arms like an old friend. And yet, we end another night in New York. Feeding system is going to be interesting. I don't know if they're going to present us with very specific situations we have to just think about it for a minute, or if we'll be able to go out and hunt on our own if we decide to. I'm very curious to see how this game ends up opening up for us, but because I know it's going to in some regard. I'm excited, but until then, that's where this one's going to end. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next time, where New York slowly gets its claws right back into Jessica.